we're here to present you the strategic transformation in the global semiconductor supply chain of Intel. So for this presentation, we're gonna look into different parties. We will briefly talk about the history and the turning points of Intel in its history. Then we're gonna switch the market position and the reinvention strategy of this company. We're gonna focus, big focus on the new manufacturing facilities and supply chain partners. And then we're gonna go to a comparison with Intel between Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA in the AI CPU markets before to conclude. So just a brief history and the turning point strategy. So Intel is a US company founded in the 68 in the US. With the first big release in 71 with microprocessors, 4004. Intel is the pioneers in the microprocessors. And after this big release, they continuously innovate with different microprocessors, like in 1972 and 74. To become then dominant and important leader globally on the CPU market. After became a leader in the CPU market, over the decades they became leader over different parts of the sector, like PCS server or servers or data centers. And Intel experienced many different turning points and strategies over the years. So between 85 and 2006, they tried a lot of strategies. From 27 and 15, they missed the mobile shift, which is a very important impact on this company. And from 17 to 20, they experienced an important manufacturing crisis. And since 21, they are investing a lot on the manufacturing since now. And now I'm gonna let this.
So we're now gonna see the market position and reinvention strategy. So for the first point, the market position, so we'll see from the IDM model to the IDM 2.0 model. So Intel historically followed the IDM model. The aim of this model was to design and manufacturing fully in-house. So because of that, for decades, they were leader on the market, and so they had an advantage. But manufacturing chips become really complex and more expensive. So it led to a loss of manufacturing leadership against TSMC. And so because of that, they switched to the IDM 2.0 model. So they kept the in-house manufacturing, but they opened fabs to external customers. So they created the Intel Foundry Services. And the goal of these foundry services was to regain scale and manufacturing leadership. So now the strategic restructuring and policy pressures. We'll start with the restructuring. So the strategic reset driven by the leadership change. So the IDM 2.0 was launched under Pat Galinsker in 2021. So it was the last CEO. And the strategy is now executed under Lip Bhutan, so which is the actual CEO of Intel, and he was introduced in 2024. About the policy pressures, there is the US CHIPS Act and the EU CHIPS Act. So it's public support for Intel. They give them fund, and the goal of this is to support the local chip manufacturing, so to be less dependent on the Asian market in case there is some like political issue with Asia and Europe and America. So then,
moving on, we are going to focus on the Intel new manufacturing facility and some emphasis about why companies should cooperate with them. And you can see that this is a world map Intel's new manufacturing facilities. So it easily shows that Intel doesn't only set the facility in only a certain continent, but around the world. And why did they do that? Is because they making sure that they increase the production capacity and also diversify the risks and establish the regional semiconductor ecosystems too. And how they can make these new manufacturing facility work successfully is include these three elements. So for the infrastructure support, they will need a stable power supply and some water system and a logistic network. And of course, talents play an important role. So they need to have some curriculum to train the engineer and some specialists. And the last part, the equipment materials also as a core element to the whole semiconductor industry. And Intel's new manufacturing base is not just a factory, but also an entire ecosystem to support them. So these four elements are we analyze and we want to emphasize on how these four need to join Intel and cooperate with them. So for the equipment supplier, they provide the servers hub to make sure Intel maintain the production capacity smoothly. And the next part, the material supplier involvement is responsible for the local production and the distribution to prevent the semiconductor be stored over so long, like long distance, or stored over to a long time to prevent the delay of the delivery. And for the talent workforce partnership, as I say, they need to provide some curriculum to train their semiconductor talents. And for the last part, the conduction infrastructure partners include these four companies, and there are the power and energy utilities company and some power and some water utilities too. And also the government, local government will take place in this role too.
So for the comparison part, we want to do the Intel compare with AMD and NVIDIA. So Intel focus more on their IDM, which is the in-house manufacturing, produce their own goods within their own facility, using their own staff and the equipment. So on the other hand, AMD is more fabless. They design and sell the chips, but they doesn't own their own manufacturers plants. For the core strengths, Intel is more focused on CPU ecosystem and platform integration, while AMD is more combined CPU and GPU together. For the AI chips, Intel have the broad AI portfolio from PC to data center, but the AMD is a high-performance AI accelerator. And we will talk about the AI chips for the next slides. So as a result, Intel is catching up in the AI accelerators, but AMD is already a fast-growing AI GPU challenger. So for the Intel, for this part, we want to focus how Intel use Gaudi series to compete in AI chips market. Their product role is more like AI training inference, and there's an alternative to NVIDIA GPU, and they use the cost-efficient scaling. And for the market position, they are catching up in AI accelerators, and they focus more on the price-performance ratio. And they do have their open ecosystem approach, which means Intel aims to support the multiple software tool and framework instead of just locking customers into one closed systems. And they also integrate with their own CPU, and they focus AI roadmap with the data center. So for the AMD, they are quite different. They focus on their MI300 AI accelerator. They have their high-performance AI training and complete directly with NVIDIA GPU. And they also have their large-scale AI workload. For their market position, they have the strong momentum in AI data center, and they also rapid adoption by the cloud provider like. Okay, so for the strategy part, it's a little bit quite hard, but we want to say the AMD unit is their platform strategy. They design their CPU and GPU to work closely together in a single computing platform. And they also combine CPU and their AI chip together to have the strong software support. So for the ROC, they can help the AI developer to run AI model and on the CPU of AMD and more easily. So.
Okay, I'll try to finish quickly. We're gonna compare Intel and NVIDIA. So Intel has key product H3 as Ivy mentioned, and NVIDIA H100 and H200. So Intel is a relatively small share of the market, is growing instead. NVIDIA is still the market leader with 80%. NVIDIA do many things on GPU, CPU, parallel computing, but Intel in contrast only focus on AI accelerators. Also, it's very different segments that they target, because Intel just target on low price, which is half the price of NVIDIA, but it rather use the previous generation as base for its AI accelerator. So it improved them, which gives a strong base and also good performance, relatively good performance for a very low cost. In contrast, NVIDIA rather focus on the best performance in the market, but also very versatile, whether it's for AI training, insurance, but also for different range of products like CPU, GPU, and also software. The major difference is between CUDA ecosystem and Synapse AI. CUDA ecosystem is the gold standard for AI development, so it's widely used, but everyone learned to use as language. It's relative to the hardware. So if you change the hardware, we cannot use CUDA, but you have to use Synapse AI. Also, the problem is that you have a proprietary system like you have with Apple, with NVIDIA, which allows the user to only buy NVIDIA products which are all at a premium price. In contrast, in Intel, you can have an open ecosystem, so use different types of software. It requires some adaptation from years. So that's the problem. But you have a very, very good price to performance ratio, which is usually called thank for a while. And so, as I said, it's very different segments, because Intel just focus on good performance for a very low price, so very, very good bang for the buck, but in contrast, you pay $12 for NVIDIA, which you get really less in the market.
So for the conclusion, we start from our Intel history, so we know the strategy transformation. And from the supply chain, we will know their new manufacturing facility across the US, Europe, and Asia. And also from the comparison, it catching up rather than leading in AI and CPU market. So to sum up, we want to say Intel is not just a short-term dominance, but about the long-term rebuilding. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, Alex. Oh, Gina, wait. Who's first?
So thank you for the presentation. So as in the past, Intel used to be a dominant in the computer chips. So when Apple abandoned Intel, I think that Intel is actually seeing a really significant downfall of its segmentations. So do you think now, if Intel transformation into IDM 2.0, are those efforts is really enough to catching up with the industry? Because it used to be a dominant, and now it has to catching up with other dominant giant players within the game. And actually, considering the fact that NVIDIA is growing too fast, growing rapidly, do you think that those efforts of Intel is actually enough to just catching up with the dominant, with the giant player, but not focus on innovate or produce or invent anything new?
So for this part, actually, when we're doing the research, we can tell like Intel is like going down for a little bit, but for the recent news, they actually have the collaboration with NVIDIA. Like NVIDIA invests like $15 million into Intel. Maybe they just want to combine together and just in a really great partnership with them. And I think it still be really beneficial for the Intel, because if they want to, right now it's hard for them to be the top, but being as the partner for the top, I think it's also a good choice for Intel.
I can say more on that. So I think Intel used to be a key player for microprocessor, but it's focused more on AI accelerator. Which is quite different because it's a series of processors to be parallel computing. I won't go into technical, but the thing is, Intel just focus on the core segment, mid segment, instead of the top segment where it's already far behind. So what it does, it uses the previous generation of NVIDIA usually, which is the top player in the market. So it uses that generation, it rather cut corners on what can be cut, but also polishes the old technology just so it makes it more efficient. So it's got a very, very strong base for good performance, but also at a very low cost. So essentially, the offer of Intel is bang for the buck. You get a lot of value for what you pay. But if you want the best, you need to go with NVIDIA, but NVIDIA is a high cost. So it's very different segments. So it focuses rather on actors who have fewer financial means, and so it's different because AI processor and all this kind of stuff is not individuals who are gonna buy this kind of stuff. It's companies because it's very expensive. So for small players, they can rather buy Intel products, but that requires some adaptation from the engineer, which is the main downside of Intel. So it doesn't compete directly with NVIDIA, which is the key player, still at the forefront, but NVIDIA also bear all the cost of R&D. So Intel just use the old R&D and make it more efficient and also less expensive because the technology is not older technology, it's easier to understand. But the difference is AMD has a very wide offer on all the segments from low to high. But NVIDIA is just the top, so that's why NVIDIA and Intel are becoming allies. So NVIDIA can focus on the top of the market, high-end, and Intel on the mid segment. So they're natural allies to neutralize AMD and cut its market share and eventually make it a smaller player.
Can I ask a question? Okay. We all know that after you research, you know the Intel, they will be, all of a sudden, they will be the verge for the bankrupt, right? Because actually the Apple and the NVIDIA rates are right now, so we can see a lot of news recently, like the Donald Trump asked TSMC to invest money in Intel, or the Intel, they just hunt one of the former TSMC employee. There will be the news. So I want to know, is this a part of the strategy for the Intel to let them have the company still running up? Or because the Intel is just like the drawing company and they just reach the rope, they threw to the ocean. So I want to know their cooperation with TSMC will affect to the Taiwan's TSMC company.
I don't know for TSMC in particular, but as I said, Intel has no refocused its offer on really cost, on value for the money. So that's why it invested in foundry, which it didn't have in the first place. So it's probably some collaboration with TSMC for manufacturing capabilities, knowing that TSMC also builds factories in the US because it's Donald Trump or the US pushing.
Build out a factory, you need a lot of money to build a the factory, actually.
Yeah, but that's subsidized by the US government because they have a strategic incentive to relocate some part of the microchip production in the US to make it less vulnerable to China if there's an attack on Taiwan or some pressure, and which can create a shortage for US microchips because not all of it comes from Taiwan, so they want to relocate the production capability in the US.
Okay, one side, Intel is in trouble right now, partly because of the technology, but also I'm wondering if you could dive into the spreadsheets or the annual reports of Intel to see if those international or global manufacturing facilities are actually generating profits or debts for that company. I think there's something wrong within Intel. That's my guess. I haven't delved into it yet. Yeah, maybe if you could. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Thank you.